Amid all the things going on in our country right now, the radical left is celebrating because they're getting ready to place another liberal on the Supreme Court. Now, granted, this is not gaining a seat. It is simply replacing someone. But we really have got to be honest at what's taking place in front of our very eyes. You're listening to the Closet Conservative Podcast. So as I said in the opening, the radical left is getting ready to place a new justice on the Supreme Court. And there's a lot of talk because Joe Biden promised that he was going to place an African-American or a black justice, female, on the Supreme Court. And it was maybe a month ago. I know this article was ran over at the Washington Post, and it's starting to make some circulation again on social media, and I think it's worth actually talking about and talking in a little more detail. Joe Biden blocked the first black woman from the Supreme Court. Now, a lot of people will disagree and say, no, this lady was never nominated, nothing ever happened. If you read the Washington Post story and actually do the studying, you find that back in 2003, George W. Bush, whether you like him or not, nominated a black female to serve on the U.S. Court of Appeals. And it took a negotiation between the left and the right to approve her for the Court of Appeals. You see, she was nominated for the D.C. Circuit, the most or second most important circuit, according to the Post article, and has produced more Supreme Court justices than any other federal court. She was immediately hailed as a potential Supreme Court nominee. Her name? Well, that was Janice Rogers Brown. She was on the California Supreme Court, and you find that the radical left pushed the Republicans to say they would not eliminate the filibuster to push through justices. Of course, they put that out the window when they got control and Barack Obama was in office. They immediately eliminated the filibuster and started stacking justices wherever they wanted. They eliminated the filibuster, doing anything they could do to pass legislation. You remember Harry Reid did all of that. We're all aware of what happened. But buried in this article, something that a lot of people may not pay attention to, is the fact that Joe Biden specifically voted against her twice. You see, he voted against her the first time, saying he did not want her. They continued to push, and finally she was confirmed at a vote of 56-43. But Joe Biden voted a second time against her nomination, and he never explained why. So it wasn't long after Justice Sandra Day O'Connor announced her retirement, and Brown was on Bush's short list to replace her. But Joe Biden made this statement on CBS's Face the Nation. He said that if Bush nominated Brown, she would be the first Supreme Court justice to be filibustered. His statement was, I can assure you that it would be a very, very, very difficult fight, and she would probably be filibustered. He was asked by John Roberts, wasn't she just confirmed? And he said that the Supreme Court is a different ballgame. But is it? I mean, after all, you're sitting here saying that it doesn't matter what the person believes. I mean, that's what Joe Biden said throughout this whole Supreme Court nomination, this whole Supreme Court situation with his most recent nomination. It doesn't matter their background. It doesn't matter what they believe. It doesn't matter how they rule. The only qualification was the color of their skin and their gender. Now, I get it. The world's distracted by all the other things going on. The world's distracted by Russia. They're distracted by Ukraine, the situation in Ukraine. They're distracted by rising gas prices and other things that the media wants us to look at. But why are we not continuing to talk about this from Joe Biden? I mean, after all, if it was important to nominate a black woman, why was he not supportive then? Was Joe Biden racist back in 2005? Was Joe Biden racist when he voted against her? Was Joe Biden racist when he went on CBS and said it would be a mistake and he would work to filibuster Bush's nominee? I mean, after all, he said that the filibuster shouldn't exist, but he negotiated to keep it back then. He negotiated to keep it back in 2003 when it mattered because he wasn't in power. But now that he's in power, we need to get rid of it. And he threatened to use that relic as a tool to eliminate a black woman from being nominated and placed on the Supreme Court. You find that Biden has walked against and worked against African Americans and Latinos for years. Yet he wants to claim he's their friend. He wants to claim that he's out here doing things to help Americans. He wants to claim that he's trying to push things through for minorities. Let's just be honest. Joe Biden has done nothing for Americans except live off of your money. He's done nothing. Joe Biden has done nothing to help an American. He's not helped you since he's been elected. He's not helped you with the fact that rising gas prices, the inflation that's going on around our country. I don't know if you've went out to buy groceries lately, but they've went up in price. I don't know if you've went out to eat lately, but me and my family walked in a restaurant just today and saw a sign on the door that said, due to rising food prices, we have went up on our prices of the menu items, and we haven't even been able to afford to print new menus just to tell you what the price is. People are struggling across the country, not because we don't have unions. That's not causing people to struggle. People are not struggling because we're having issues in Ukraine. People are struggling because of Joe Biden and Joe Biden's failed leadership. They're struggling because Joe Biden at heart is a racist. They're struggling because Joe Biden made promises that he can't keep. He continues to say that he's here for Americans. He continues to say that he's doing all these things, and he wants to talk a big game against Vladimir Putin and say that we need to remove Putin from office. I'm sorry. Look, I don't like what's happening in Ukraine. I don't like what's taking place over there at all. I've shared thoughts about that in various settings. The person that needs to be removed from office is Joe Biden. I'm not saying Donald Trump's the answer. We can go back and argue that on a different setting. I'm not saying that Joe Biden is the only or Donald Trump is the only solution to the problem. He's a lot better than what we have. At least when he said he was going to do something, he did it. At least when he said he was going to put America first, he did. There was never a question about who was first when Donald Trump was in office. There was never a question about where his heart lies, where his concern was. Instead, we have Joe Biden that is sitting here, and he has took a stand against Russia, and I think doing something against Russia was good. He should have done it months before they ever invaded Ukraine. We knew they were going to do it. He should have enacted all of these restrictions and rules and everything else, all of the things he wanted to do months before he did. He should have never took off the restrictions off the pipeline. And then now he wants to go sell American natural gas to Europe because they're in a bind because they put all of their eggs in the basket of Vladimir Putin. Again, instead of making us independent and living off of American natural resources, gas, oil, whatever you might have, we're sitting here still importing oil. We're sitting here still selling off the things from America. And you and I are all paying more for everything thanks to Joe Biden. All while he is getting by free for being a racist. All while he is getting by claiming that he's doing something, claiming a social victory. That's all this is. It's not that the person's more qualified. It's not that he actually really cares. Biden just wants a social victory. So here we are. The mainstream media is distracting you with stories of Ukraine. They're distracting you with other stories. They're distracting you with stories about how Republicans are standing asking difficult questions of a Supreme Court nominee, even though we know this nominee is going to end up being nominated to the Supreme Court without any chance to stop it. And we want to champion Joe Biden for being a racist by giving him a victory, claiming he nominated the first black woman to the Supreme Court. I'm sorry. This is ridiculous. We're giving the man credit for doing nothing. We're giving the man credit for being a failure. We're giving the man credit for doing whatever it takes to win an election. I mean, even the Post article, near the last few statements of the article, said Biden might not have been elected as a president had he not made the pledge to nominate a black woman. Yet, our media does nothing to go back and research and find how Biden had the opportunity to help support a black woman, but he was a racist and played politics instead. I'm sorry, Joe Biden's not worth celebrating. Joe Biden is a failure. Joe Biden is a racist. And it's time for us to stop being distracted by the ridiculousness of our mainstream media, which refuses to share the truth with Americans. Instead, you have to find out the truth months later. Mainstream media ran with the story for months that this was going to be the first nominated black woman, that this was going to be a huge win for social justice. This was a huge win for blacks across the country. Actually, we had the opportunity to do this nearly 20 years ago. And the person that stopped it? Joe Biden. The Closet Conservative Podcast is a production of the Liberty Loft. Copyright The Liberty Loft 2022. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and remember to leave a 5-star review and share our podcast with your friends. You can find more shows and information on our website, www.thelibertyloft.com, or on any of our social media channels.